We knew this day would come. We just didn't know when. But I'm here to tell everyone that the Bay Area housing market is officially stabilizing. The Bay Area housing market has been on fire for the last couple of years now. And for the first time in a while, we are seeing major signs of a slowdown in the market. And we're going to get into all of it today. All the stats, all the data, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But before we get into those stats, before we get into the data, if you're a home buyer in today's marketplace and you're looking for a comprehensive data set to assist you in your home buying decision making, you can go ahead and text the word data plus the area, the zip code, or the neighborhood that you're looking in, and we'll send that information straight to your inbox. And if you're a home seller and you're trying to figure out, is now the right time for me to sell? Spoiler alert, it probably is. And if you are going to sell, what is the right pricing strategy? Because right now, especially right now, pricing strategy matters more than anything else. You can go ahead and text the word data plus your property address to the number down below, and we'll get all of that information sent straight to your inbox. The numbers are in for the month of April, and to be honest with you, it's not as good as I was expecting it to be. Meaning, I thought the market was going to hold out a little bit longer for home sellers, and it's starting to already show signs of a slowdown. And by the way, if you've been watching my videos, I didn't need the numbers to tell me that that was the case. We were experiencing it in real time in April. Like, I was making phone calls to my friends in real estate, like, hey, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because like, no one's showing up to open houses anymore, and we're not getting as many offers as we were used to getting even a few weeks ago. And so what happened? What happened? Well, I highly recommend that you go watch my previous video where I give a couple of hypotheses as to what caused the slowdown to happen this early. And really, it was just a series of events that led to this that we may have been able to predict to a certain degree. That being said, some of this was unpredictable, just given all of the different things that have come our way. The stock market just taking a nosedive the way that it has. And not only that, but interest rates rising as quickly and as high as they have. All of those things have played an impact and basically made it so that we're experiencing what we normally see in the summertime happen right now in April. And so a lot of things remain to be seen with how this market shift actually plays itself out. Do we see an early fall market where the fall, typically we see listings go down a little bit and demand rise a little bit once the kids are in school and settled? Do we see an accelerated fall market, or do we just see an extended summer market? Or is this the beginning of the end? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let's start with some semi-decent news first. And this is about as good a news as we're going to get today. In San Mateo County, we had 411 homes on the market in April versus 473 homes on the market last April, which is a decrease of 13% year over year. So inventory levels are still dropping in San Mateo County, and that's not the case in most of the other parts of the Bay Area. At the same time, pending sales are also down. So we went from 533 this year. We were at 623 last year. So we took a 14% decrease or hit to pending activity as well. Basically, the dip in pending activity mirrors the dip in active inventory. And so what we see is a net neutral, like almost a wash. It's just basically as much of a seller's market as it was last year, specifically in San Mateo County. So yes, we are seeing a decrease in demand like we are in most of the other parts of the Bay Area. The only difference is here in San Mateo County, we are also seeing a slight decrease in inventory when it comes to year over year metrics. Now, as you can see, the market is still playing catch up because even last month, in March of this year, we were down even more significantly in terms of active inventory versus that same time in March of last year. And so the market is climbing month over month. We are seeing a rise in inventory levels, whereas last year inventory was fairly stable throughout the spring months. We are seeing a rise month over month. And so let's pay attention to this trend, because obviously if we continue to see that same kind of rise where we saw a 20% increase in inventory levels month over month, if we see another 20% increase, then we'll definitely be in a market in San Mateo County where we are seeing higher than normal active inventory levels when it comes to year over year data. Really, that's the best news that we have in the Bay Area right now. That's the best market. Now let's get into the bad now. Starting with Santa Clara County, if we look at the pending activity is down nearly 23% year over year versus inventory levels. They are down a little bit. So actually year over year here in Santa Clara County, we're still seeing suppressed inventory levels when you only look at year over year data. Last year we had 1,086 homes. This year we have 1,045. So that's a decrease in 4% in inventory levels. But there's a huge difference if you look at last year's spring market. So if you look at March, April, and May, we had basically fairly neutral inventory levels over those 3 months versus this year, you're seeing March, April, a huge jump month over month, a 45% increase in inventory levels in just 1 month. Now, let me just say that if you simply just look at the data and you look at pendings versus inventory levels, you're still seeing pending activity outpace supply, meaning we're still in a really, really hot seller's market. But here's the issue is that there's a big difference between what the data is saying and what the consumer is experiencing, because for 4 or 5 months, 6, 7 months in Santa Clara County, even more, we were in a white hot market where like, God, homes flying off the shelf. You're seeing 40, 50 people at open houses. But when you increase inventory levels by nearly 50%, overnight, there is going to be a shock to the system. There is no easy way for the market to recalibrate here. So one of two things can happen here. Really, one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to see the inventory levels increase month over month again by that much or increase dramatically, or we'll start to see a leveling off. It's really too early to tell. But really the big story here is the drop off in pending activity. I mean, nearly 25% year over year. And we're seeing year over year, month to date, a very similar 24.5% decrease in pending activity. So there are less buyers out there right now. It's very obvious and for a lot of different reasons. And we're seeing this play out not just in Santa Clara County, but when we flip over to even San Francisco, we're seeing an increase year over year in inventory levels. So we're seeing an increase of 15, almost 16% in inventory year over year and a decrease of nearly 18% year over year in pending activity. So the net effect is like a 33 point swing. That's a lot for a market to handle. And it's not just San Francisco. When we flip over to Alameda County, inventory levels are up 16.4% year over year versus pending activity is down nearly 18% year over year. So that is almost 36% point swing. And that's not easy for a market to handle. That's not easy. That is going to be, you're going to feel that. Now, I want you to pay attention. In Alameda County, pending sales still outpacing supply. What this means, it is still a beautiful time to be a seller, meaning you are still achieving a top dollar for your property. You should be, at least, if you have a great home and a great neighborhood and great fixtures. Now, what is happening in real time is people are starting to become more selective. Buyers are starting to become more selective. They have less competition and a little bit more to choose from. And if those two things, if we start to see less competition month over month, and more options and more options and more options, what happens is we start to see even more of a stabilization. So this is the beginning. This is how a stabilization starts to take shape. And we're seeing it in real time with the data. And, you know, even though it might seem like if you're a seller, oh my gosh, it's Armageddon. It's really not. I mean, the numbers don't lie. We're seeing pending activity still outpace supply. Even if pendings were to drop another 20, 30, 40% and inventory levels leveled off, we'd still be in a great situation as a seller. So this is not the worst possible news. It is the beginning, though, of a stabilization. It's very obvious. And it could turn into something more than that. It could turn into a nosedive, but a lot needs to happen before that comes to fruition. I mean, a lot needs to change in the market, way more than has already changed. Way more. Now let's flip over to Contra Costa County because this is where it starts to get a little uglier. We're seeing a 31% increase in inventory levels year over year and a 14-point decrease in activity levels, pending levels rather, year over year. When you factor everything in there, that's basically a 45% swing, a 45-point swing year over year. And that is a lot for a market to handle. But again, the point I want to drive across is that when you look at pendings versus inventory levels, we're still in a white hot seller's market. Remember, when it comes to absorption rate, an absorption rate of 33% or above is still considered a seller's market. We're at an absorption rate of like 133%. So there's a lot of buffer there for more things to happen before we're really in a situation where home prices are going to be significantly impacted. Remember, in a stabilizing market, what happens is home values still increase for the most part. Generally, home values increase. They're just increasing at a way slower rate. And that is what's happening right now. Now that's the bad news. Let's get into the ugly. In San Benito County, we are seeing a 105-point swing, 105% increase in inventory levels and a 40% decrease in pending sales. The net effect here is essentially a 150-point swing in a year. And that's not good news if you're a home seller in San Benito County. I mean, almost everywhere else it's okay. But what we're seeing here in real time is just, I mean, in 1 month from March to April, we saw an 85% increase in inventory levels. Anytime that happens, it's not only going to shock the system, it's going to bring the market basically to a dead stop. And that's what's happening right now in San Benito County. So basically everywhere else, if you're a seller, you're still fine. But if you are a seller in San Benito County right now, if you're experiencing suboptimal results for the sale of your property, this is why. In a matter of a month, we saw inventory levels nearly double. And that is not good. Any way that you slice it, that is ugly. Now remember, San Benito County, because it's really like a sister county, it's a commuter town, and a lot of people end up downsizing. They sell their home in the valley and then they go down to Hollister. So this is a town that usually is impacted, or this is a county rather, Hollister, San Juan Bautista. These are areas where really we see dramatic swings in the marketplace. If you remember, even a year ago at this time, it was like we were riding high in all of San Benito County. Now, not so much. So now, with all this data in front of you, what does this mean if you're a home buyer? Well, first of all, I highly suggest that you text the word data plus the area, the zip code, or the neighborhood that you're looking in, because these numbers fluctuate dramatically based on each individual area. And so it could be that in the area that you're still looking in, you're like, oh, Danny, like, I know that you're saying this, but like, I'm still going up against 10 other offers. Yeah, guess what? There are areas right now where it's still white hot. And your strategy, your approach needs to be different than the general public. And the general public right now, the strategy is interest rates aren't getting any lower anytime soon. And, we could see interest rates climb even more than a point, where they're at right now over the next year. I would be hard pressed to find an area in the entire Bay Area, aside from maybe San Benito County, where we expect home prices to fall 10% over the next year. And so the reason that I bring that up is because a point increase in interest rate is the equivalent of a 10% increase in purchase price. And so if you're trying to game the market and game the system, right now there are opportunities out there. There are sellers who, because of this shock to the system. See, here's the thing. Like when we experience change, the best time to get to take advantage of the change is to get ahead of it. And basically now, but between now and maybe the end of June, there's going to be opportunities as buyers, because the sellers won't really understand what's going on, and they're going to cut prices and take offers probably that they shouldn't be taking because they didn't get an offer in the first week. So they freak out. And that's honestly, well, that is the result of panic selling and thinking that doomsday is upon us. Doomsday is not upon us. But if you're a buyer right now, the rates are about as good as they're going to get for the time being. And there's going to be opportunity out there. So the worst thing to do as a buyer is to just kind of sit back and be like, yo, I'm out. Because really over the next 60 to 90 days, there are going to be sellers who are not educated, and because they don't receive an offer in a week or two, freak out. And those are the kinds of opportunities that a buyer you should be looking for. Because what will happen is the market is going to recalibrate by the end of summer, at least I believe. And when enough buyers who just decided to sit it out realize that there's opportunity in the market, we're going to see an increase in pending activity. And then all of a sudden, we're going to be right back where we were a few months ago. These are how these cycles happen. It's up and down as we start to stabilize. And honestly, if I'm a buyer in the marketplace, I'm banking more on the fact that the Fed is going to raise the interest rates by over a point in the next 12 to 18 months. I'm banking on that way more than the market dipping 10% or more in the Bay Area. That's just me, because really there's been very few times in the history of real estate where home prices have dropped more than 10%. And that's over a 2 to 3 year time period, not just 1 year. And so if you're trying to game the system or wait for this like major crises, meltdown, crash, I just don't see it happening. At least I'm not seeing enough signs right now in the market that that's going to happen. On the flip side, if you're a home seller right now, this data should put a fire underneath you and get you to take action. Now, I'm going to say one thing when it comes to pricing strategy as a seller in this market is do not undercut and underlist your home. The underpricing strategy is the kind of strategy that you want to deploy in the market from 3 months ago, not the kind of market that we're in today. Right now, you have to expect your property now to sit on the market for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And so your chances of getting multiple offers in a stabilizing market starts to decrease. The better pricing strategy in this market. And there are exceptions to this rule, by the way. And there are listings of mine right now that we've underpriced. And that's because of the market conditions and everything. We've identified that this is still a place where we should be deploying that pricing strategy. And that's why you should be texting in the word data plus your property address so that you get the proper approach, so that you understand the approach that's relevant to you. Because right now, this is a generalization. The generalization is price it where you want it, because that's where you're going to start negotiating with most buyers, because the chances of you achieving multiple offers in this market is significantly lower. And so to hedge your bets, you should be pricing it where you want it, because if you underprice it and you don't get any action the first 2 weeks, now you're stuck. Now you're stuck at a price that's really too low. And in a market like this, the worst thing you can do is stand by and watch your neighbors give away your equity. If you've been thinking about selling, do not allow that to happen, because there are people who will do that in a panic. And because they don't get an offer in a week, all of a sudden they undercut the value of your home by $50,000, where you could have maybe helped up the ante a little bit because you were educated and you didn't panic sell. So things to think about. Food for thought here as we enter the summer market. And again, if you've been watching the video up until this point, first of all, thank you so much for sticking with us. And if you're not already subscribed to this channel and you've been watching it this long, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and click the subscribe button, click that little notification bell and the like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps me get in front of more people just like you that need my help, that are looking for Bay Area housing market advice. And as a token of my appreciation for doing that, you can text the word free shirt to the number down below, free shirt, and we'll get a Selling Silicon Valley shirt sent straight to your house. All you need to do is give us the address. This is Danny Gould, everyone. I'm Selling Silicon Valley, and I will catch all of you in the next Silicon Valley Snapshot.